The reveals continue, and the Mardu Surge deck is up on the docket. This is red, white, black, of course, Mardu colors, and it definitely seems like it's going to be stronger than, well, I've only seen one other one so far, but the cards in it are pretty powerful based on what I've seen. I'm excited to talk about them with you. So, we're going to jump right into the video. Be sure to hit that like button if you do enjoy, and then click subscribe, bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted, and let's jump into the cards. This deck is, of course, number 2 of 5. They're revealing one each day, so I'm trying to keep up with the coverage for each deck as we go. We've got Zurgo Stormrender. It is a red, white, black legendary creature, Orc Warrior with Mobilize 1. Mobilize, I can't remember if I covered it in a previous video, but it says whenever this creature attacks, create a tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature token, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Whenever a creature token you control leaves the battlefield, draw a card if it was attacking, otherwise each opponent loses 1 life. Now this card seems extremely strong to me because based on the verbiage, it is not just once, it's any time a creature token leaves, meaning if you make a bunch of tokens and they all end up dying after attacking, then you get a lot of, I guess, resources for this. So, like, if they block it, whatever, you can simply get some draw power. And if for some reason tokens leave and they weren't attacking, then you just deal 1 damage to the opponent for each one. And with Mobilize, what we've seen so far is there are a lot of ways to ramp up the production of tokens, which means this is going to be really strong. Overall, I think this is a wicked good card. I think it fits really well within the colors, and as a commander, it's probably going to be the stronger of the two. But you could be the judge of that, of course. Naive, Crackling Vanguard. Artwork-wise, this is a beauty. It is 2 red, white, black legendary creature Spirit Dragon with Flying and Death Touch. When Naive enters, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Whenever it attacks, exile a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of differently named tokens you control. During any turn you attacked with a commander, you may play those cards. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this seems pretty weak. It's a decent mana investment, the tokens are solid, but the last effect does not feel like it's worth the mana investment, in my opinion. Obviously, Impulse Draw is good, but it's not like you can play those cards for free or anything like that. You're just exiling some cards, which obviously is good, but it's just not, in my opinion anyway, it falls very short compared to Zurgo. Are there ways to utilize this in certain decks? I'm sure there are. It's certainly not a terrible card by any stretch, but it does feel a lot less explosive than the other face commander, and for that, I have to say I'm a little bummed out, because this is some pretty damn cool artwork, but there might still be uses for it. I just think, overall, it's actually pretty underwhelming. What is not underwhelming is Anok Strike Leader. This is 1 and a white creature dog warrior. Whenever you attack with this creature and or your commander, for each opponent, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that is tapped and attacking that player. Then you can sacrifice this creature. Creature tokens you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So there's a lot going on here with this, of course. It is very strong. As long as it attacks or your commander attacks, or both together, which is obviously a little trickier than just, attacking without it on its own, you are able to create a bunch of tokens and then kind of just pop off. Now, if I sounded confused for a second, I'm just rereading this to make sure I understand the effect correctly. This is the first time I'm reading most of these. Whenever you attack with this creature and or your commander, that and or leads me to suggest that it might need to attack with the commander, or the commander can attack by itself, I think. So that is a little less impressive off the bat, I think, because it does have to attack alongside your commander, if I'm reading it correctly. Can someone let me know in the comments if I'm not reading that correctly, by the way, because I obviously just, want to make sure I'm understanding the rules text, but it seems like you either can attack with your commander, or this creature and your commander. But I don't know. Someone let me know, because it's a little confusing with the verbiage. But still, either way, being able to make tokens for each opponent is certainly good. They're tapped and attacking. But the second effect here, sacking it to give all your creature tokens indestructible, means you can play a board wipe and sack it to just protect all of your tokens. That's extremely strong. And there are a lot of decks, Rin and Seri one that comes to mind, that will absolutely be able to make use of a card like this. But any token spam deck, really, that uses white can benefit from a card. It's essentially a heroic intervention, but you don't have to use it. You can have it out on the board and then sack it at any time without even needing to pay mana to do it. So I do think this is a really strong card, worth some consideration. I don't know if the comments clarified anything here in terms of the attack, but no, not really. But yeah, again, I'm curious about the way that's worded, because I'm probably overthinking it, but I think you have to attack either with just your commander or with this and the commander. So somebody let me know. Either way, it's still pretty good. Ironwill Forger is 3 and a white Orc Artificer creature with Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, target non-legendary creature you control gains Myriad until end of turn. Myriad, of course, says that when a creature with Myriad attacks, you make a copy for each opponent, and you create that copy's attack in the opponent, and then you sacrifice it. I do like this. It does feel like it opens up a lot of fun possibilities. Certainly duplicating creatures you normally wouldn't be able to and getting, the maximum benefit off of their effects are good. And all you have to do is control your commander, which isn't impossible. I definitely think this is a card that's going to have some fun combo applications, and I'll have to do a little bit more research into it. When we do our videos talking about upgrades and stuff, we'll cover these a little bit more in depth about what works better with some things, but I do think the card itself is pretty strong. Bone Devourer is 3 and a black creature dragon with flash and flying. It says this creature enters with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the number of creatures that died this turn. When this creature dies, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. Now, this having flash is obviously huge because you can choose when to drop it, and obviously if a bunch of creatures died after a board wipe or a bunch of sacrifices and stuff, you can maximize the number of tokens that it gets, and of course, getting those counters means you're going to get extra draws, although you do, obviously at some point the life will come into play, right? But it is Commander, there is a lot more flexibility with that. I do think overall it gives you a good bit of timing, and it's cheap enough and does end up getting buffed when it comes out as long as you play it right. That it's worth looking at for certain things, but it's definitely a solid card, and it's just a pretty good inclusion in here in general. Goldlust Triad is 4 and a red creature dragon with flying and Myriad. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Not terrible. 5 mana is not the greatest. I mean, you could certainly play it in decks like Kali, although I think there might be some better options there. But still, making one that attacks each opponent, meaning you're going to get 3 treasure tokens and deal damage, certainly not bad. It's okay. I feel like my initial reaction is that there's just better options, but I could also be wrong there. Or you could utilize something like Ironwill Forger to give it double Myriad, and then you're making a bunch of copies and getting a lot more treasure, which certainly isn't bad. It doesn't have haste or anything, so there's no real way we can get that going right away unless you have Greaves or Boots or something, but it's decent. Just, I don't think it's great. Now, this card I did read, and this card is crazy. This is Redoubled Stormsinger. This is 2 and a red, creature orc wizard with first strike. Whenever this creature attacks, for each creature token you control that entered this turn, create a tapped and attacking token that is a copy of that token. At the beginning of the next end step, sacrifice those tokens. So there's a lot of token there, but essentially, if you, let's say, attack with Goldlust Triad, you create 3 copies because you have 3 opponents, so there's, 2 copies because you have 3 opponents. So 2 enter, you're basically going to make 2 more copies of those tokens that are also attacking and so forth. And using this with cards like Adeline, Resplendent Cather, or even, I think, is it Mirel, Shield of Argrave, if you're playing it within these colors, being able to just basically take a bunch of tapped and attacking tokens and then make double that is extremely strong. And this is a very, very inexpensive card to play. Obviously, it does have to attack, so you do have to make sure you have ways to get that going. I think if it had haste, to be a little too good, but it's a really fun card that seems like it's going to give a lot. Decks that play tokens, especially in white and red, are going to be eating good with this card. We've got Will of the Mardu. It seems like there's going to be one of these for every clan. This is 2 and a white instant. Choose 1. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both instead. Create a number of 1/1 red warrior creature tokens equal to the number of creatures target player controls, or Will of the Mardu deals damage to target creature equal to the number of creatures you control. Obviously, that first effect could be really good, especially if you're playing against token-heavy decks where they're making a bunch of things, like goblins, and then you can just kind of level it out and make tokens equal to that number, which is not something to be understated. The second effect is good, but I actually think the first effect is what really makes this card shine. It very much depends on the decks you're playing, but I think being able to just give yourself that many tokens and then also utilize token doublers or attack boosters and stuff is certainly strong. The Elspeth in the new set that doubles tokens and also can buff them up and give them flying likes this card a lot too. I think it's pretty good. I think it's better than Will of the Jeskai for sure. Infantry Shield is 2 and a red artifact equipment. Equipped creature has Menace and Mobilize X, where X is its power. Whenever it attacks, create X tapped and attacking 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step, and then it has equipped 2. So again, another really powerful way to get this going, especially in like Voltron decks. If you have a strong commander that's like, you know, hell, 4 or more, 5 or more, whatever, you're making 5 tokens, and then you're using stuff like redoubled Stormsinger to make 10 instead, and then all of a sudden you buff them up, and you're looking at a crazy amount of damage going very quickly. Just really good. Just a really, really good card. It's a strong card. It obviously on its own isn't the craziest, but like combining it with any token-based strategy where you can buff stuff up is just going to be kind of nuts. And then finally, we've got Within Range, which is 3 and a black enchantment. When this enchantment enters, create 2 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures attacking them. This card, again, really, really strong, especially in token decks. And people kind of make comments here talking about with Mobilize, it actually does work there. So if you're making a bunch of tokens, they're losing life equal to the number of creatures attacking them, because the Mobilize is going to resolve, and then it's going to look at the number of creatures that are attacking versus the attack declaration trigger. But not to mention, it does still give you creatures when it enters. I think this is a pretty powerful card in a lot of different scenarios. Note that it does say Red Warrior, doesn't have a color identity, so you could, in theory, play this just in a regular mono black or other colors and still get use out of that second effect. So that's just something worth keeping an eye on. But overall, I think there's a lot of really cool cards here. This redoubled Stormsinger is just going to be a crazy card. You could just kind of tell by reading it, but it looks extremely good on paper. I'd be very surprised if it didn't make a strong impact. I do think this card is really good, especially depending on how that first effect works, but either way, as a protective card. And then we've got the Commander, which I just think is really good. And probably a significantly better option if you're looking for a new commander to play within those colors. Well, I'll send it over to you guys. Let me know what you think of the deck. Are you going to be pre-ordering this one? Are you excited about any of the cards? I don't think there's too many reprints of note. I do know Skull Clamp will be in there, which is obviously noteworthy, and a couple of decent lands. But as a whole, no like crazy need to mention it high value reprint there. Still decent though. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll catch you in the next video.